Nurah Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nurah Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nurah Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nurah Muhammad. What a privilege and pleasure it is to be with you in another episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast, and I am particularly excited today because we are now celebrating the 3-year anniversary of the podcast. This podcast started in November 2017, November 23rd to be exact. 2017. That was the release of the very, very first episode. And that time has just went by so quickly. You know, you look up and I was at year 1 and then it seems like I blinked and then I was at year 2 and now here we are at year 3. What an exciting journey. What a special journey. And I'm grateful to all of you who have been on this journey with me. And if you are just getting on this journey, if you are just joining us, welcome. Welcome again. I am Nurah Muhammad, host of Nurah Speaks podcast. And, you know, as you heard in the opening, my mission, my goal is to tug on the soul and the consciousness of the Black community. Somebody has to speak to our consciousness. Someone has to speak to our soul. We have been captivated by a very superficial world. We've been captivated by all of those things that excite us externally. You know, whether it's the smartphones or the cars or the clothes or the bags or the shoes. You know, this society puts bright, shiny things in front of us to get us excited. And these are things that we attach to ourselves, but what are we doing on the inside? What kind of work are we doing on the inside? And so that is what the Nurah Speaks podcast seeks to do, is to spark or trigger our consciousness or to trigger our soul, that those deep parts of us that are just so special, but have been neglected in this modern day society. And, you know, the restoration of self-love, the restoration of group love, the restoration of responsibility and duty and family, all of that is what I seek to trigger with the words and the content that I share, the dialogue that I have on this podcast. I want to trigger us to become whole again. And so I started this podcast with that intention. I saw content and I heard content that was marketed to the Black community that I believed was damaging, that I believe tore at the spirit and the soul and ate away at the goodness at the core of us. And, you know, you've heard me say, if you've listened to the podcast over the last several years, nobody is snatching mics, meaning nobody is taking the microphone from those individuals or those content producers who are filling us or trying to fill us with their vile words or their hateful words or their self-hating rhetoric. You know, the messages that promote alcoholism, that promote drug abuse, that promote the breakdown of the Black family, that rejects education. You know, no one is snatching the mic from these content producers. Right. And we live in America and there is free speech. So anyone is free to say anything in America. And so since anyone is free to say anything, then I decided then I'll start saying some things. And what you hear and what you've heard on this podcast are messages aimed to improve our outcomes in our families, in our households, personally, in our own personal development, and certainly in our community development. And you've heard from more than just me on the podcast, but I will say I am not always eager to open up this microphone and share it with others, because I am very critical of the messages that come from the Nurah Speaks podcast into the ears of the listeners. And so I'm very, very super selective. I've mentioned before that people have said, "Oh, I need to come on your podcast." And I thought, no, you won't be on this podcast, because it is my sincere intention to bring you not just individuals who are doing work and who are being productive, but I want to bring you people who have some real foundation to what it is that they're going to be saying. They have some evidence. They have some receipts. They have something coming behind just their words. And I will tell you, in reflecting back over my 3 years, I can think of interviews that I probably shouldn't have done, or interviews that I shouldn't have aired. And I'll tell you that this has definitely been a learning experience. It has not been a journey that has been perfect, but if we waited for perfection to happen, we may not be here today. So as I have been in this 3-year journey, there have been much that has changed. My studio, for example, my studio has went through some modifications over the last 3 years, as has my equipment. Went through some changes. I've had different guests, as you know, on this podcast. And I've learned so much as I've done this podcast. But one thing that has remained the same, one thing that has not changed, nor will it change, is the love that I have for my people. I love my people. I love my people deeply. And because I love my people deeply, I am committed to this podcast. And in such a time where this podcast is something that I may not have the time to give the attention to that it needs, or I may not be able to produce the content that I want, then either I'll take a pause, or, this podcast may end. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. I feel like we are just getting started. And so I've had some wonderful guests over the last 3 years on this podcast. I've had dear friends, people who are doing wonderful work in their local communities. I've had people that are new to me that I've met. I've had medical professionals on this podcast, educators on this podcast, entrepreneurs, and all of these people that I've brought you has had something meaningful to say. And I'm grateful to that. I'm grateful to have such a beautiful network of people that I can ask to come on the show and have an important conversation with me. Now, one thing I will say is, as many people do their podcast, there's different ways to, and this is kind of on the production side, there's different ways to do these shows. Some people record weekly. Some people record their guests in batches. Some people do series. So, for example, they could do an educational series and they'll have students and teachers or school administrators. Some people record their own independent single mic episodes in batches. They'll think about a month or 2 months in advance, and they'll record a bunch of episodes, and we'll have them batched and we'll produce them. And I've done that. I've done a little bit of that from time to time. However, for me, I really feel best when I record weekly, when I kind of have my pulse on what's happening in our national affairs or our local affairs, based on interactions that I've had or trends that I'm seeing. I will record based on what I think our people need to hear that particular week. And there have been episodes that I've already had scheduled that I'll bump and push it back a week because I think, no, we need to talk about this specific topic this week. So, as I said, it has definitely been a journey, and it's been a journey that I have learned so much in. And, one thing that I would encourage any of you who are doing good work, or who want to do good work, or who wants to impact your community, just get started. Get started. So many of us could be making wonderful strides and wonderful impacts, but we feel as if, we're just not ready. It's just not perfect yet. Now, that may be true. The timing may not be perfect, and you may not be ready. So I say, get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Get yourself started so that by the time you get to the seat, to the office, to the boardroom, to the microphone, wherever it is that you seek to go, once you get there, you will have a contribution to make. Get ready. That means we have to be active. We can't just sit on our living room couches and dream and think about what it is that we would like to do without rolling our sleeves up and getting involved in the activity so that we can qualify ourselves to do what it is that we want to do. Dreams are nice, but we have to wake up to a reality where we can make those dreams come true. And that's, so much of my life has really taken an unusual and an unexpected turns. I certainly never saw myself speaking weekly on a podcast. I never saw myself speaking anywhere, quite frankly. And those who know me well and know me best know that I never would have ever considered myself to be a public speaker. But now here I am. And I'm on this microphone, and you're listening. And I hope you're encouraging others to listen. And I've been blessed to have something to say. And it's not because I wasn't being made ready. And in fact, I'll tell you, I've just been about trying to work and help and contribute to my community. And then in that, I was being prepared. I was being made ready without even having a podcast or, a consulting or any kind of business on the horizon. That's just not what I saw for myself. But fast forward, and we can find ourselves in some unexpected places. So I say, get ready, get busy. Don't just sit and dream it. You have to get into the activity of whatever field or industry that you seek to make waves, and just get busy and enjoy what it is that you're doing. So as we are celebrating this 3-year anniversary of the Nurah Speaks podcast, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for trusting me. I want to say thank you for coming back week after week. I want to thank those of you who come to me individually, personally. If you happen to see me and you thank me for the podcast or you congratulate the content, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of the guests that I've had on this podcast, some really, really incredible and exceptional people. I thank you for trusting me to amplify your voice, to amplify your message, or to be just a sister to you in this way. And I'm just really humbled. I'm just very, very, very grateful. And I thank all of my close friends for their support with this. As you may know, if you've ever met someone who suddenly became passionate about something, it can become almost obsessive, talking about it all the time and sharing what it is that they're doing or talking about their new equipment. I know, when I got some new equipment, I was so excited to go and tell my friends. So I thank them for tolerating me and listening to me and for supporting me and for sharing in what it is that I do. How wonderful is it for you to have people in your circle that are your contemporaries, that are your peers, who don't hate you for being successful, but they love you and support you in that success. So I'm in a very, very happy place. I'm extraordinarily blessed. I thank God for this opportunity. I thank God for you as subscribers and listeners. I thank God for learning from some of the mistakes that I've made that I won't repeat with the podcast. And again, I'll say, I'm very protective of this show. I'm very protective of the audience. There have been potential guests that didn't happen because they just weren't aligned with what it is that Nurah Speaks intends to do for its audience. And so, and then sometimes I guess I'm selfish. I want the audience just for myself. However, I will tell you that we do have some really great guests that are going to be coming up, some great content we're going to discuss. And I will be really frank with you. There's some content that we will be discussing on this podcast that I wanted to wait until after the election because I never want to discourage my people from participating in, the electoral process. I never want to discourage any kind of civic engagement, but what we really need to push is the responsibility that we have to ourselves. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how the mainstream really disrespects us. They bring people to the microphone and to the camera who are not leaders. And they want to hear from people who are not leaders, who have not organized with people. And the reason why that's important is if you have not organized with people, then you really have no bearing to stand in front of the people. And you really are not a contributor to a conversation. We're talking about galvanizing people for the electoral process. And so our people have been used. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about not just how our people are being used, but who is using our people and which of us are being used. And so, as I said, there's going to be some really striking conversation coming up on the podcast. But I did want to wait. I believe that just because you have a message to share, you always have to consider the time. You always have to be intelligent and be wise and consider the who, the what, the where, and the when a message should be delivered. So, again, I just want to thank you. This is a very brief episode, and it's an episode of me expressing my gratitude for having the blessings of God, for having the will to serve, and for having been imbued with the capacity, having been trained to serve. And so this has been a wonderful opportunity for me, and I pray that it's been a wonderful opportunity for you. So again, the Nurah Speaks podcast can be heard or subscribed to on any major streaming platform. I encourage you to send me an email. If there's something that you want to say to me, you can email me at info@nurahspeaks.com, info@nurahspeaks.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Nurah Speaks podcast. You can reach out to me. And again, I just want to repeat how grateful I am for all of those who have sent me private messages or emails thanking me, those who have come up to me in person and have thanked me or acknowledged the work that I'm doing through this podcast. It is in my nature to serve. So I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful, and I'm very humbled. And so as we are celebrating this 3rd year anniversary, there's still so much for us to do. And I look forward to getting it done with you. So thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast. Stay along. And if there's anything that you would like to hear that you have not heard, you can email me and let me know, what kind of content you might want to hear more about. And I will certainly make sure that we bring those conversations to you. Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast. Until next time, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nurah Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, nurahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@nurahspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nurah Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nurah Speaks podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, Don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.